Good evening, BTU membership. Thank you for joining us for tonight's Baltimore Teachers Union presidential debate. It is now 7 o'clock and we're going to go ahead and get started. So I want to welcome everyone to our presidential debate this evening. My name is Megan Miskowski. I'm a speech language pathologist from the Office of Special Education. I'll be serving as our moderator for this evening. I want to start by thanking the members of the Nominations and Election Committee. This is a group of just regular BTU members who are volunteering to help plan and organize the activities around the election, including tonight's debate. I want to go over a couple of the rules for our audience before we go ahead and get started. Tonight's going to be a structured conversation between our candidates. We're going to have the opportunity to provide opening statements, to answer questions. We're going to take turns with who answers first, responds and provides their own response, and then provides a response to that candidate as well. We're going to have 6 questions this evening that were developed by the everyday members of the NEC. At the end of those 6 questions, we will have closing statements, which will be our final chance to hear from our candidates. We're live right now, but this is being recorded. So if you have colleagues who are not able to join us this evening, we invite them to come back to the BTU YouTube channel where they can have the opportunity to hear from our candidates for BTU president and to learn more about their views prior to voting in the upcoming election. Without further ado, let's go ahead and introduce our candidates. So tonight we're going to be hearing from Ms. Diamond Tay Brown and Mr. Harry Preston V. These are our 2 candidates for president for the BTU election. We're going to start now with their opening statements. So we're going to hear first from Mr. Preston this evening as our challenging candidate. So Mr. Preston, you will have 3 minutes to provide your opening statement whenever you're ready.
Okay, well, good evening, and thank you, by the way, Megan. There's no such thing as a regular educator. We're all working as hard as we can. Good evening, brothers and sisters. My name is Harry Preston V. I currently teach at Green Street Academy. And again, I am a 16-year educator, 12 years with BTU, or excuse me, 12 years in Baltimore City Schools. I'm a father of 3, 2 of which are city school students, and 1 who will be one next year. Again, I want to say that I'm running for president because I believe that now is the time to build a better, stronger, more inclusive BTU. I believe over the last 3 years, we've missed too many opportunities to grow, too many opportunities to hear the voice of new members, hear the voices of experienced members, and find ways to put them together and find ways to make them work. I believe the current administration worked very hard, or as hard as they could, with the experience they had to set out what they intended to do. And with that experience and with those opportunities, unfortunately, I believe that there were opportunities that we were learning when we should have been thriving. Their learning did come at the expense of some things, and from some things we did gain. I do appreciate the new communication, as I fought for that for years prior to now. And I'm glad that we were able to communicate. Again, it's 2022. We all have digital media. We need to find more ways of communicating. I'm running to build, or more to say, to build on what they have started. I'm here to continue out some of the work that has been moving on for years. I'm running to build more onto the unity side, more onto the side of paraeducators and some of our experienced teachers. I'm here to make sure that those voices are heard in ways that they haven't been previously. I'm running as a leader that is willing to accept responsibility for people who are unable to be communicated with, or people that haven't had the opportunity to speak. I'm here running as a leader that wants to hear from different points of view, that's welcoming people of different beliefs, different values, different ideas into our union, because that kind of discourse is how we get to being the strongest possible union. I'm here to lead by example. And as a member of the executive board for 6 years and a member of the BTU for 12, I will say that over the years, we have grown, but we can grow bigger, we can grow stronger, we can grow better. We need to grow together, and we do so with unity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Preston. Ms. Brown, your opening statement.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Diamond Tate Brown. I am the current president of the Baltimore Teachers Union, and I am also running again to be the president of the Baltimore Teachers Union on the Brown slate, the Union We Deserve slate. I want to say thank you to the NEC for hosting this debate. And I believe in a member-driven union. And that has guided me to several successes in several different ways. One way is successes in BTU finances throughout my administration. When I first stepped in the door, unfortunately, I inherited a budget deficit of nearly $800,000. In my first year, I was able to slash that deficit down to $100,000. And in my second year, I was able to actually take that deficit from a deficit to an actual income that exceeded our expenses by $100,000. And the main way I've been able to increase our income is by increasing our membership. In this term, I've been able to increase membership by over 400 members. Additionally, my belief in a member-driven BTU has led to negotiation successes. Under my administration, we've been able to secure the highest raises in Maryland for teachers and PSRPs and the highest BTU raises in over 10 years. Under my administration, we've also protected healthcare and added the most new contractual protections in over 30 years. And I'm very proud to say that negotiations no longer take place in silence. We've held dozens of meetings with members to create proposals that were presented to the district. We've been able to give regular updates throughout the negotiations process to members. And lastly, I want to say that unfortunately, because I believe in a member-driven union, I've worked successfully to overcome obstacles that have been presented by my opposition that is currently on the board and that will be running, that's running against me this time under the unity slate. We've had obstacles getting mail-in ballots. Members of my opposition have spoken out against that. In addition to members being surveyed for BTU political endorsements, unfortunately, members on the unity slate that are currently on the board have spoken out against that. And so I am asking you to vote for my slate, the Brown slate, the union we deserve, so that we can continue to build on these accomplishments.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. So now we'll have our first question. So question 1, what are the biggest issues facing Baltimore educators? We're going to hear from Mr. Preston first on this question. Mr. Preston, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. And I do thank President Brown for bringing up the issue on the raises again, and the fact that the budget cuts, because 22 members of the people who pushed those budgets through are on the unity slate. So I definitely appreciate that. And we're happy about the budget cuts. Unfortunately, those things come at a expense because our members are facing fatigue. Our members are fatigued more than ever. And we have an opportunity to build those resources through the budget of the BTU. We have an opportunity to push programming through for our members, supporting them in ways. They're burdened with the unusually high level of the social emotional stress that they're carrying the load for their students and families. And we've got to find ways to lighten that load. A lot of that comes with the training and programming that the BTU has the ability and strength to offer. And I'm sure we're going to hear more about that in a few minutes. But again, when teachers are supported and parents are supported and they have the training necessary, they're able to go out there and do phenomenal things. But it's hard when they're bearing the weight. So some of our teachers are suffering from grief that it's hard to explain when you're not in the classroom over years, because there are some of us who are outliving many of our students. And any teacher that has been in the classroom year over year has the same conversation. Can you believe we buried another student? That's a very difficult burden to bear. And we, year over year, still fight that. And we have an ability, we have a responsibility to our members to help lighten that load, help lighten some of that fatigue, making sure that they have the resources, making sure they have the supports, making sure that as we tighten our budget, we don't do so at the sake of programs that support our members. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Preston. Ms. Brown, your response?
I agree with Mr. Preston that we don't want to do any budget cuts at the expense of taking away programming that supports our members, and we haven't, and I'll continue to make certain that that doesn't happen. And I also agree with Mr. Preston that one of the biggest issues facing Baltimore educators is fatigue and burnout. We have evaluation practices that unfortunately are punitive. They don't make sense, and they're not being used to actually help teachers and improve student outcomes. And then we have meaningless district initiatives that are contributing to burnout, like SLPs. We have the challenges of COVID that we're facing, and then at the same time have a district leadership that is completely out of touch with the realities that our school staff members face on a daily basis, and our city school staff members face on a daily basis. We also have our PSRPs. They're being asked to fill every single gap and hole in the school building. They're being asked to substitute exponentially more than they've been asked to substitute in the past, and they're stepping up to that charge. They're being asked to cover extra cafeteria duty, the entrance and dismissal. They're being put in charge of students that are exhibiting extreme behaviors, and they're being put in charge of these students without training and resources to support them. Another issue that I think is facing our Baltimore school staff, I want to expand our idea of educators to school staff. One thing I've heard from a lot of our members is that educators doesn't make them feel included, and everyone doesn't identify as an educator. So I've been trying to expand our language to school or city school staff to make certain it's all inclusive. But school staff have spoken specifically about principal overreach, which oftentimes leads to a lack of autonomy as professionals. And we just need to let BTU members do their job. So I want to work towards building a power so that we can just be let to do our job. We're professionals, and we should be treated with the respect and autonomy that professionals deserve.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Mr. Preston, you have a minute to respond.
Absolutely. And as a union of professionals, these are all true statements. However, I believe that everybody that is dealing with our children and our families are educators. If you're sweeping the floors, you're wiping the tables, you're in the hallways, you're on the buses, you're in the front office, everybody educates our children in one way or another, either by example or through conversation. And the truth is, we are dealing with an unprecedented amount of behavioral issues, an unprecedented amount of stress-related issues. These things can be programmed out. Now, again, our parents and our teachers and our transportation workers and our school service staff all have the fight of their lives on their hands. We need to work more inclusively, having the conversations that matter. And if it's the same people, we need to figure out why the same people are in conversations and not everyone. That's the work that has to be done across the board, not just a select group of individuals.
Thank you, Mr. Preston. We'll now move on to question 2. So for question 2, what is your plan to improve the school experience for students and educators? And this time we'll hear from Ms. Brown first, whenever you're ready.
There are several ways that I plan to improve the school experience for students and educators. One, we need robust union chapter committees. one of the several structures in our schools and work sites that we need to develop more. I also want to work on developing and engaging more PTAs and PTOs, because to improve the school experience for our students and educators, we need to have our parents and families on board. Additionally, I am looking forward to making our school family councils stronger and operate the way that they're supposed to be operating. They have major influence over curriculum and the school budget. So I think it's important that we make certain that these structures are operating properly and in the best interest of our students and our school staff members, and our staff members that are at other work sites, like our bus transportation lot in North Avenue. I also think we need strong building reps, because these are the people at the schools that help enforce the contract, and also help hold administrators accountable for treating staff members with dignity, humanity, and respect. And part of my plan is also to ensure the complete adoption of the blueprint legislation. That is very beneficial, but we want to make certain that implementation actually supports the needs of all of our school staff members and city school staff members. And lastly, I'm definitely going to continue the financial stewardship that I've showed in this first term, because we are going to need that financial stewardship to have the resources to support members, leverage in City Hall in Annapolis, and actually have organizers on staff at the union.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Mr. Preston, you have 3 minutes to respond to the question, and Ms. Brown, thank you.
Thank you. So the blueprint is going to be a large portion of our conversation. Clearly, it represents a large portion of a lot of work. In fact, 2 of the members who worked on that are on the Unity slate. One of the former commissioners is on the Unity slate as a delegate. So we know full well and very much what is entailed in the blueprint. One of the things that we love to hold administrators accountable, and we've been working on this for some time, is making sure that the CTE portion of that is maintained. Because currently they're sunsetting a lot of CTE programs, which means the possible loss of 40 to 100 teachers. But here's another thing we need to be considering. There's an entire population of our students who are being underserved. We have students that are hard of hearing and hard of sight that are not receiving the services that they need. At one school, there is one person who is certified as an ASL interpreter, and he is servicing a cadre of students well beyond his ability. And moreover, that is a very strong young para that is doing this work. A lot of the time he volunteers just to make sure those students get what they need. He's an integral part of that school, and we need to make sure that the work that he's doing is continued throughout. I hope that, I plan that we include more ASL training in our schools. We include more of that building opportunity for the hard of hearing and hard of sight, so that educators and paras are trained, not just those folks who are in specific schools, but across the board. The more opportunity that we have to advance, and this will again discuss later, but again, the return of the parent educator, the parent to teacher program, and the return of the teacher leader program back to our strength in those things. I think that we need to continue to offer services around efficacy. What we need to do is, again, build an entire equity audit about the resources we have in our union, because we have members in this union who have the ability to strengthen more groups and more organizations within our schools. We have the ability to reduce fatigue by increasing resources. There are some members in this union who are very strong at securing resources, finances, opportunities, experiences. Those kinds of things can be passed through and passed on to our students and passed through our teachers. And we have the ability to secure those things. We need to, as a union, go back to being united, not discussing the separation of organizations, but the building of 2 chapters together as one union. The way we're going to do that, again, is by resourcing from our members, discussing what is necessary, discussing what they want, and finding at the truest truest, deep levels what they need and how to best get those things to them. We are going to reach all of our members, sighted and hearing impaired. We're going to reach all of our members who may be technologically impaired or have skill set difficulties. And we're going to do that by uniting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Preston. Ms. Brown, you have a minute to respond.
I want to talk a little bit more about how we can plan to improve, how I plan to improve the school experience for students and educators through making certain the blueprint is implemented properly. This legislation has been adopted, and I really appreciate all members that worked on the legislation. It is extraordinarily complex. And my team is set up to ensure that we gain the additional resources that we need for staff and students for the blueprint to be successful. And one small example is just, for example, national board certification is supposed to have financial support. Our district has fallen short on that. And so my team is prepared to not just leave the language on the paper for blueprint, but to make sure our district is implementing it properly. So that way we can improve the school experience for students and educators.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. We'll now move on to question 3. For our third question this evening, what is your vision for career advancement, educator evaluation, and compensation? We'll start with Mr. Preston this time.
Thank you. Again, it is my strong belief that we need to have a strong functioning parent-to-teacher program. We need support for our pairs by way of the para-pro education. We need our teachers to have the teacher leader program reinstated. We need to find ways of supporting those members who are unconditional to get past some difficult testing and understand the new testing requirements. We need to make sure that our CTE teachers have the ability to attend the training necessary to make sure their licenses stay secure and they have the best information to make sure our students are able to go into those trades with the skill set necessary to be the best in those trades in dignity. Those students who are in trades now will eventually become union members in trades later. That's how it's done. That's what we do. And that's how we advance our educators. That's how we advance our paras. Now, our compensation is currently tied directly to our evaluations. And this year we saw the advent of unannounced observations, which came across the negotiating table years ago, which somehow managed to come to fruition this year, the year after the biggest pandemic known to man, woman, and child in recent history. We are fighting for, in some of our cases, we are fighting for our lives. And to hear that you may be observed in a classroom without notification, well, that's a little bit much. And for some educators, it was a walk in the park. It was just another day of work. But for some of our newest, more challenging educators, it was difficult. The concern here is this. We all know that this is an attempt to, for lack of a better term, pencil whip certain members. Some opportunity to move along people that they do not care for. It's a punitive thing. If it was truly there to help and support, then there would be other things in place to make sure that those educators are not just being penalized, but they are being supported in their educational practice.
Thank you, Mr. Preston. Ms. Brown, you will now have 3 minutes to respond to the question and Mr. Preston. Thank you.
These are pretty challenging topics when we're talking about career advancement, educator evaluation, and compensation. And I think it's going to take some coalition building within and outside of our union to be successful, which I have the experience and the skills to be able to build. I also have a vision and to complete, because we've already started combating inflation. Inflation is very high. And we've already started to combat this in our current negotiation session for PSRPs, and I don't want to lose ground there. And so I would love to continue that fight as far as compensation is concerned. Additionally, I want to make certain that the complex implementation of the blueprint is supportive of teachers, PSRPs, and clinicians. One of the things that I alluded to earlier is national board certification. one way that is supposed to help teachers with career advancement. And there are supports built in that we want to make certain that the district implements properly. And there are also lack of supports built in for PSRPs and clinicians. And we want to make certain that we continue to build on the current blueprint legislation to make certain we're including our other school staff members. And as Harry said, we do need an evaluation system that is more supportive and more informative. Right now, we have an evaluation system that is very punitive. It's demoralizing. And I have a vision where we will have a teacher evaluation that has a rubric that makes sense and that isn't overwhelming. And, you know, the unannounced formal observations, according to the data, they don't provide additional information. They actually just strain a relationship between admin and teachers. So I envision having an evaluation system that is supporting and informative. And also as part of compensation and benefits, I have closely monitored our healthcare to ensure it's protected against unnecessary increases. And I think this is a really important part of the vision I have for compensation.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Mr. Preston, you'll have 1 minute to respond.
I think we all can agree that the support for the blueprint and teachers, PSRPs, and clinicians is something that no one will let falter. One of the things that keeps getting overlooked is support for the CTE programming. These students who make up a large portion of Baltimore City schools are being overlooked time and time again. Now, these are the students many times were what was used to be called vocational education, which is actually the true title, is now called career technology education, was relegated to students who people didn't think had successful career opportunities. However, the CTE programming in the blueprint is called for expansion. You know what our district is doing? They're pulling back, they're sunsetting, they're bringing down these programs for no reason other than because they can. They have had the opportunity to move certain things around and take a bite at the strength of our union. And they have done that. The unannounced observations came through negotiations table. They did that. Every opportunity they have taken to encroach on our ability to be strong as a union, they are doing that. We need to turn that around.
Thank you, Mr. Preston. We'll now move on to question 4. So for question 4 this evening, how do you plan to recruit, retain, and encourage engagement of all members during your administration? We're going to start with Ms. Brown, whenever you're ready.
Well, I want to start off by just sharing a story. I'm really proud of this situation. There have been some bus aides that reached out to me and expressed that they really felt neglected by the union. They felt like they were being harassed and assaulted and mistreated on a bus lot, and they reached out for support. And that conversation turned into meetings with the bus aides. We've had about 6 meetings with the bus aides to talk about several of the issues that are going on there. And as a result of those meetings, we've been able to help them start a union chapter committee. They've met with other PSRPs on a bus lot and then with their supervisors. And so that's just one example and one of encouraging engagement. And I plan to continue to do that type of one-on-one relational engagement. Also, I've led a recruitment effort through redirecting staff to make certain that they are directly engaging with non-members so that we can continually and strategically increase our membership. Building reps also get a list of non-members so that they can help in increasing our membership so that and I plan to continue these types of methods to recruit non-members. And retaining members is happening in all different types of ways, First of all, making certain that we provide the services that they are asking for, which is why it's important that we have a member-run union, and making certain that they can continue to stay engaged and feeling supported in their schools and work sites.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Mr. Preston, you'll have 3 minutes to respond to the question, and Ms. Brown.
Thank you. My answer to this question is simple: investment. We need to invest in our teachers. We need to invest in the teachers that are here. We need to invest in our parents that are here. We need to invest in everybody at every work site that's there. So we need to be looking at what it is they need to be best at their jobs. If that is making sure that instead of hiring contractors to do certain things, that's what we're doing with the district. I am glad that the BTU so far has been able to do their jobs in making sure those relations with those programs or those areas are maintained. That is great that we're able to maintain the minimum level of doing those things. But we have got to find ways to make sure that they're not just meeting expectations, they're thriving. So what is it that we can make them thrive in their position and making sure that they're not going anywhere? Because again, burnout is real. Fatigue is real. And everybody in every position is feeling it. So how do we fix those things? Well, we got to make sure that we're putting opportunities for those folks to get more training, putting opportunities for those people to commune together, to get to know each other, to get to know their leadership. Under my administration, what you're going to see is Unity Slate members being tasked to make sure that they are also communicating, not just the staff, not the people who are paid to do it, but the people who ran for office. So every executive board member will have the opportunity to mix, mingle, and relate to every single member if they so choose as members. My hope and my plan is that we're able to revisit our relationships with alternative certification programs to make sure that when they're coming in, they're not just coming in and high and by. They're coming in, they're staying in, and they're working toward building better, stronger students for a better, stronger union, for our better, stronger schools. These are things that we can do. We can have these conversations. And I don't believe that there needs to be an animosity style relationship with any of these organizations. In fact, we should be working together because we all have the same end goal. If we're not working toward making sure our students are the best students in the country, in anywhere else, then we're not doing our jobs. Our job is to make sure our members are staying with us. That's how we stay as a union. That's how we stay together. But our job as those individuals is to make sure our students are having the best possible experience. Again, we need to make sure that everyone has that conversation. Recruitment and retention are all the same thing. We need to make sure that the teachers who are experienced have the best options and opportunities here. And then we're going to find more of those teachers who are not being recruited as heavily. Those teachers who are coming from careers to come in, because I'll tell you, as someone who came in from financial services into education, I have a different experience. I worked in research labs. I know several teachers that have worked in research labs and have made successful career changes into education only because someone asked. We have to ask those questions. We have to build our partnerships with our unions and making sure that the CTE and trades are straight, because here's the thing. Those folks are teachers too. And I promise you, if we have stronger CTE programs, we're going to have more kids in programs and we're going to have more kids going out into trades. Those funnel back into the BTU.
Thank you, Mr. Preston. Ms. Brown, you have a minute to respond.
I just want to add that as far as member encouraging engagement and retention, I've held targeted meetings with early career teachers under my administration, and they have a great turnout. We've also been able to double the New Teacher Institute pay, which encourages their engagement in the New Teacher Institute and a sense of belonging in the union. And additionally, we've increased transparency. That's one of the most common things that I hear from members, that this new administration, which is my administration mostly, as I explained before, we still have members of my opposition, the Progressive Caucus, formerly and now known as the Unity Slate, on the board. And we hope that we can continue that type of transparency moving forward if you vote for the Brown slate.
Thank you. We'll now move on to question 5. So for question 5, what is the union's role in social justice? And we'll start with Mr. Preston. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. To be clear, the unity slate is made of people from multiple caucuses, as some of them are actually former members of the union we deserve. The intent being here is that we are looking for growth and hearing more voices, people who felt that what they were sold was not what they got. And I believe that's a large part of what we're missing out on our social justice package here, the program. We have spent a lot of time focusing on a lot of issues, and I believe they are very strong issues. Our role as a union is to support our members in those social justice efforts, support them as best we can. How do we do that? We do that by making sure our unity is tight. We make sure our union is built to last. We make sure our members are trained. We make sure our members have voice. We make sure our members are heard. Now, again, we somehow we keep talking about organizations that were around or were being run, and guess what? Those folks are no longer in the union. We're not talking about those folks. We're talking about who's here, who's now. I work in a lot of different social justice programs personally, but for the union, I do what my job is, and that's making sure that the union is first. Yes, I do believe there are a lot of things we could be doing. I work in the CDC. I work as a treasurer for the community development corporations. But my thing is this: where we build it out as a union is by making sure our members are taken care of, making sure our members are not too fatigued to go out there and fight whatever good fight they believe in. We make sure our members have all the resources to do their jobs so that when they get home to their families, they're able to go out and represent for their neighborhoods, their communities, their affinity groups, whatever it is that they believe is best. And we support them in every way possible. But our role, our job is to make sure that this union stands strong, to make sure that the administration is not encroaching on our rights as BTU members.
Thank you, Mr. Preston. Ms. Brown, you'll now have 3 minutes to respond to the question, and Mr. Preston.
I believe that the union has a major role in social justice. I really appreciate all the work that unions have done in the past to get us where we are today, but times are changing by the moment, and the old top-down corporate service model of unionism that BTU employed is just insufficient now to meet the challenges of our day. Social justice unionism means our agenda being driven by our members and collaborating side by side with the students, the parents, and the communities where our schools are situated. And when I can speak more to partnering with students, by partnering with students and other members like the Parent Community Advisory Board, the PTA Council, and other community organizations, we were able to win protections for members and students around COVID that the district had no intention of providing. We were able collectively to win the most robust COVID testing program. That was not on the table before we worked together as students, BTU members, PCAB, PTA Council, to get those protections. And also, another example of social justice and our role is the Digital Equity Coalition. BTU helped found the Baltimore Digital Equity Coalition. And through that coalition, we were able to secure $3 million from the City Council to ensure students had access to laptops at the beginning of the pandemic. We also were able to put pressure on Comcast to increase accessibility to the Internet Essentials program, turn on public hotspots. And all of these were not just for our schools, but for participants in Baltimore City. And another example of of ways we can be involved in social justice is we also had a partnership and continue to have a partnership with several of our resident councils throughout Baltimore City. One being Poppleton Homes and the other Douglas Homes. These residents have struggled with several crises, and we've been able to partner with them to provide the support that they asked for. And there are several other examples of the union's role in social justice and how we've been able to engage. And I look forward to taking us even further.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Mr. Preston, you have 1 minute to respond.
I totally agree in that part of working with the homes and things. Again, as somebody who works directly with the Upton Planning Committee and McCullough Homes, I certainly agree that that was the union's role. However, a lot of these things have been directed toward personal relationships as opposed to an open discussion. How do these associations become magically or recently involved? Well, here's the thing. PCAB didn't just magically come out of air. It's been working with BTU for years. It's happened long before this last 3 years. The association with neighborhoods, associations and homes and things for students, they've been around for years. What's changed is which ones are being supported or how they're being supported. The conversation around those things doesn't happen. In fact, through multiple board meetings, we've just asked for clarity about who's being funded, how they're being funded, and where those funds are being directed and to whom. If we can't answer those questions, then we're not doing our jobs.
Thank you, Mr. Preston. We'll now move on to question 6. So for question 6, what are your legislative priorities for the BTU? We'll start with Ms. Brown.
One legislative priority is working to expand student voting rights on the school board and also to change the composition of the school board. This year, we've already started that initiative over several years during my administration. We've been working on this legislative priority. And through coalition building, we've been able to successfully increase voting rights for students, the potential addition of another student member, compensation to make serving more accessible to regular people. And we need to continue to push for more elected seats so that the decision makers are actually accountable to the people directly impacted by their policies. Another legislative priority is a PSRP pay raise. BTU fought alongside AFT Maryland and MSEA to get PSRPs the compensation they deserve. While the original bill was amended, PSRPs will still receive a $500 bonus in fiscal year 24, and we will definitely continue fighting for the living wages that PSRPs truly deserve. Another legislative priority is the blueprint implementation. While a significant investment was secured this session to fund blueprint implementation, we need to secure even more revenue and do so by ensuring that the tax and large corporations pay their fair share in taxes. And another legislative priority will be class size. We have classes that are completely too large, and right now we don't have the ability to legally bargain this issue. And so we need to be able to legally bargain this issue to tackle issues like member burnout and the academic success of our students.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Mr. Preston, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Our issues on class sizes, I totally agree with you, Ms. Brown. And I also believe that the work in blueprint, no matter where we are, is going to have to continue. So I'm going to move on to different things that are off people's radar. First of all, the Votes Coalition was a phenomenal thing to get started. I'm so proud of you all for that. I was actually one of the folks who was in total support, except for the fact the inability to attend meetings because of the timing. It was directly after school, and also after a few delegates dropped off of that, I started to question my ability to continue. So I hope that it all works out, regardless of how the election turns out. I definitely believe that we need to have students' voice on those boards. Some things we need to be pushing, some legislation we need to be looking at. There's a lot of discussion around sexual abuse, assault, and sex trafficking and human trafficking. We should be pushing into that because a lot of our young boys and girls from the city have a definite access to or proximity to trouble here. And we need to be looking into that. And it's not just in Maryland, it's all over the state. are all over the country. But again, those are some of the things that we should be looking at. There are some things that we need to be discussing about the Maryland Internship Opportunity Grant Programming. We need to be looking for opportunities for our students to not just to go to college, but also go into careers. And they need to be having opportunities to get more funding for those educational experiences. We need drafting support legislation to support out school programs and community service agreements that those after school or out of school programs are supported by teachers and paras, not outside agencies or companies coming in to just give us services as opposed to utilizing our members for those services for students. We'd also be looking at servicing agreements that when companies come in to build things in our city or even in our district, that they're hiring our students. That we have so many different projects happening inside of Baltimore City schools that they're hiring other people. Shoot, the district, the BTU doesn't even print within the school system. We have printers here. We have students who work in computer science. We have students who work in engineering. We have students who work in architecture. We have students who work in CAD. The city, the district, the BTU should be utilizing those services of those students. Now, I know we have an obligation to hire union work, but understand that when these students have these opportunities to do things, we have an obligation to make sure that our students have the best opportunities, the best access. So again, we're also looking at other things, legislation around child care stabilization grants and something even more simple with the public schools and the compost programming. These are things that directly involve our students. These are things that directly involve our members, and the health of our students and members needs to be a vital priority. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Preston. Ms. Brown, you have 1 minute to respond.
Well, another legislative priority that I would like to make a focus is continuing to increase the democratic space and transparency around our BTU political endorsements. Former leadership prior to my administration and leaders of the opposing caucus voted against serving the membership as a part of BTU political endorsements. Fortunately, my team won the vote to ensure that this is a part of BTU COPE endorsements process so that our legislative agenda is driven first and foremost by our members and not by secret backroom handshakes.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. We're now going to move into our candidates' closing statements. So for the closing statements, we're going to hear from Mr. Preston first, and we'll hear from Ms. Brown as our final speaker as the defending candidate. So Mr. Preston, whenever you're ready, you will have 3 minutes for your closing statement.
All right, thank you. Listen, I invite all members to not just take anybody's word for anything you're hearing. Go ask, go look, go research, dig it up. I love the fact that we're transparent. In fact, I voted for almost everything. You can look at the record. 90% of what I voted for passes. There's a reason, because people from both my current slate and the previous administration slate are voting on our side now. It's because we're doing what members believe. We believe in the members. The members elected a group of people to represent us. We are going to go out and represent everybody, every member, not just some members. Why are some people going to conferences and others aren't allowed? Who's being selected? These things people should be asking about. We should know that when the office is closed because of whatever issues and it's being repaired, that everybody should know how these things happen. Were there open contracts? Were there open application opportunities? So who was being hired for this and who was being hired for that? Were there open contract negotiations? Were there open contractor negotiations? Did we even know when certain things were happening? I'm a full fan of full transparency and disclosure. In fact, I'm so much so that I'm telling you now that whatever salary received from me would be portions of that will be added to an endowment that goes directly to the BTU. And anybody, I would propose, and hopefully the members would agree to this, anybody receiving a salary from the BTU would start putting toward that endowment that ensures the stability of the BTU over time. Moreover, that there will be more communication because I invite everybody to receive BTU training. What do I mean by that? The BR training shouldn't be a secret. It's nothing new there. Anybody who wants to be a BR should be able to attend these meetings. You don't have to be the BR. The information isn't secret. So we need to set up a pathway to make sure that anybody who wants to receive the information of being a BR, but doesn't necessarily need to be the BR, can do that, so that they can help the BR in doing their jobs. That's how you get more inclusiveness. You open it up. When there's a meeting for PSRPs, every PSRP should have the opportunity to apply to go. When there's an opportunity for teachers to go to a conference, there shouldn't be just a select group of whoever's nearest me or anyone. It should be open for an opportunity for everybody to apply. Why? Because anybody should have that opportunity. We're all paying dues. When a member asks to go to a conference, we shouldn't be the ones debating on whether their conference is worthy enough. If the funds are there and they've applied, they follow the same process that's open to everybody, we should have that opportunity. That hasn't been the case over the last 3 years. And I can't speak to what happened to the previous administration because I did my job in CTE. I don't agree with things that did happen. I agree with some things that did happen. But here's what I'll tell you. Whoever they're referring to, that's not me. I'm Harry Preston V running for the Unity slate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Preston. Ms. Brown, you'll have 3 minutes for your closing statement whenever you're ready.
A lot of members are talking to me about burnout and how hard their jobs have become. And I can really relate to that burnout because I've definitely experienced some of that this year. Burnout is real and it's really having a huge effect on our school system. And what is going to unite all BTU members is that the same boss is making our lives difficult. And that boss is the Baltimore City Public School Board commissioners and district leadership. They hate me for making certain that I stand up for members and several other members on their team. And so they definitely do whatever they can do to make my team's lives harder, my life harder, the same way they do yours. And my response to burnout is to build capacity. And so that we can fight harder, we have to continue to build capacity. And in order to build capacity, I need a team that won't fight me when I'm trying to enact the will of the membership. And unfortunately, over the past 3 years, I have not had the full executive board support I need to fully fight for members. I've faced executive board members currently on my opposing team bringing up complaints and public attack and criticizing me when they have my phone number. They've had space and emails to bring up concerns in more productive ways so that we can effectively deal with them. I've also faced consistent disrespectful interruptions during meetings when I'm presiding as the chair, according to Robert's Rules of Order. Throughout my term and more recently, I faced personal assaults to me and other BTU members on social media. This isn't the right direction for our union, and the BTU needs leaders who don't resort to such tactics. We need a president that treats all BTU members with humanity and dignity, and not the inhumane ways that no one deserves, especially not our fellow union members. So we have an opportunity to build on our tremendous accomplishments, transforming the union in our first term. In less than 3 years, we've completely reversed BTU's finances from losing hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to being back in the black. This almost $1 trillion turnaround has come from reorganizing BTU staff, creating a new and more intentional budget. We've secured the highest raises in Maryland and the highest BTU raises in over a decade. We have accomplished this despite working with an executive board consisting of majority old guard members, not on the Union We Deserve team. Members have a clear choice ahead of them, and I ask that you vote for the full Brown slate.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. And I appreciate both candidates for being here with us tonight to share their views and respond to concerns from the membership. We did build in some extra time just in case we had some technology difficulties this evening, but we're doing quite well with that. So I think we're going to end this debate this evening with just some reminders about voting procedures, because after hearing from our candidates, we hope that all members are going to engage in the election process. This past Friday, ballots were mailed to all members' homes. So you should have received two pieces of mail. One is from the BTU, which will have information on all of the candidates from both slates, some sample ballots, and advice on how to complete those ballots, and then just some information about who to contact if for some reason you've damaged your ballot, or if you've made an error filling out your ballot and like a new one sent to you. There will be a second letter that you should be receiving that will be your actual ballot that you vote with. That's if you choose to use the mail-in option. The ballots have to be received by Tuesday, May 24th at 5 p.m. In order to count. The American Arbitration Association, which is the independent contractor that's running the election for the BTU, is going to provide a list of employee numbers to us that we're going to post on the BTU website so that you can log in and see once you've mailed your ballot back in. If your employee number shows up, that means they've received it. If for some reason you have submitted your ballot and your number isn't showing up, we do have in-person voting available on Wednesday, May 25th from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. You don't have to use the mail-in ballot. If you just want to vote in person, that's absolutely an option. You can do that on Wednesday. If you have your mail-in ballot and you're not sure it's going to make it in time, you can also just drop that ballot off at one of our in-person voting sites if you prefer. If you've mailed in your ballot and you're not sure it's going to be received in time, you can also vote in person to ensure that your vote is counted. The American Arbitration Association has ensured the NEC that they have a process to ensure that members aren't double voting. There's more information available on the Baltimore Teachers website. There's a new drop-down menu for the election where you can access the election guidelines. You can see the sample ballots. You can see the information on all of our candidates. And you can contact the NEC if you have issues. We can help guide you if needed. When you are voting in person, you do need to have a picture ID in order to do that. Your Baltimore City ID is an appropriate picture ID. We will accept that. Our in-person voting locations are going to be Stadium School, Moravia Park, Southwest Baltimore Charter School, and the Baltimore Teachers Union headquarters, which is at 5800 Metro Drive. Those locations this year is only going to be from noon until 6 p.m. for voting. The website for more information is there at the bottom of our slide. And this will conclude our debate. So again, I just want to thank the NEC for taking on this work, organizing the debate, and helping to shepherd this process. Really want to thank both of our candidates for being with us this evening. And I want to thank the membership for engaging, watching the debate, and taking the opportunity to hear from our candidates and their views for the future of the BTU. Thank you everyone for the work you do every day for Baltimore's children, and have a great